All righty, all righty. So hopefully we are live on Facebook and you guys are seeing this. You know how it rolls. I'm going to blab a second to give everybody time to share this to their social media channel. But
Oh,
guys, it is
there we are.
July the 16th, 2024. We have a special guest here with us tonight on Quilt Babble Live with Lisa and Rona. And it is Miss Rochelle Rice, the inappropriate
Rochelle.
quilter. Rochelle, did I say Rochelle?
You said
You
Michelle.
you were getting ready to give me a Miss Rochelle, so it's kind of
Yeah.
you kind of switch it all
Miss
together.
Rochelle. Well, listen, I only know one other Rochelle in my life, and it's my cousin, and I absolutely love that name. So if I missay it tonight, I'm going to play Rona's card. I'm tired.
And you know what? If you missay it tonight, that's okay. I know you're talking to me. I know who
That's
you
right.
are.
That's right. So, Rona, have you shared to social media?
Yeah, I'm working on it. It took me a minute to find the share button.
Oh my gosh. Okay, guys, you see what we're dealing with tonight. Rona has been on quilt retreat, back-to-back quilt retreats, and she's in a hotel room tonight. We don't know what we're getting. And then Rochelle just informed us right before she got on, she's been traveling as well. So we'll see how this goes. Rochelle, while Rona is finished sharing to social media, tell everybody who you are and how they can find you and what it is that you do in quilting.
Okay, so I'm Rochelle Rice, and if you're on it looking for me on Instagram, I'm Donut Warrior, and that's DOUGHNUTWARRIOR on Instagram. And I am the other half of Inappropriate Quilters podcast. And if you're not listening to Inappropriate Quilters podcast or you don't know about us, you're probably living under a rock because we're pretty popular. And if you just
We're fabulous, she says.
we are fabulous. If you just received your issue 31 of Quilt Folk Magazine, Oklahoma, Inappropriate Quilters are featured in that. So that's and I guess in the quilty world, what I do is I am a teacher and I'm also a long armor. And as they were saying earlier, I was traveling last week. I was in Texas the first part of the week, in Tennessee the last part of the week. And I just got home. And so Rona and I are talking about, we're wrapping it up, that our heads aren't probably all there because got all this stuff going on what you needed to fix and what happened and what you'd like to see happening again.
Absolutely.
So what else did you want from? Oh, and I don't put things on this because I don't know how to do any of it. So if this happens to show up on any of my stuff, that's really good because I don't really know what I'm doing.
Another technically challenged quilter. Imagine that.
Okay, real quick. Andrea just said hello. Hi, Andrea. Yes, it's our Andrea from. She was at our retreat in Oklahoma. So
she's actually our handler.
Andrea. I love it.
She was our handler.
Yes, she was one of our handlers when we went to the mercantile. That is correct. Yes.
And we kind of, Rona and I were so crazy. I don't know what was going on. That we must have been tired, but we gave that poor girl a run for her money. I don't think she knew what she was getting into when she offered.
I don't think any of them did.
I don't think so.
That is hilarious. Well, what we're getting into tonight on Quilt Babble Live with Lisa and Rona, the July 2024 edition, is all things about quilt tours. And I don't know about you guys that are watching, but I'm super eager to hear what these two ladies have to say because I've never been on a quilt tour. I only know a little bit about quilt tours that Rona says, and most of the time it's like, shoosh over my head because she does international tours and geography is not one of my strong suits. So this shall be fun tonight. Rona, take it away.
Okay, so first I probably should have asked this before, but so Rochelle, have you been on quilt tours?
So I've been on quilt cruises and I've been on lots of other tours, but never a quilt tour, but lots of quilt cruises. Right. And lots of tours that aren't quilt related.
Right. So we'll start there. So one of the questions that I get asked, and I think that would be a good place to start, is literally what is a quilt tour? So quilt tour is it's a lot like a regular tour that you would take to any part of the country. It is not on a cruise ship. You're going to be on a bus, and you're going to take a plane wherever the tour goes, whether it's Ireland or England or Australia. They go everywhere. And what makes it a quilt tour is, one, you're with a bunch of other quilters. And two, you're going to do something quilting related. Now, mostly you're going to do, like, the difference between a quilt tour and a quilt cruise. Tours are generally 90% or 80% touring, and the rest a little bit of quilting. And then cruises is a lot of sewing, because you're on a ship and you're in a room and you've got your machine and your project and you're doing a lot more sewing, and there's a little bit of touring when you're on your shore days. And that's of course optional. Yeah. Oh yes, Miss Lisa from the back. Yes.
Yeah, I'm the newbie. So when you were talking tours, you talked about getting on a plane, and everything you said was international. Are they quilt tours in the US to where those that don't want to fly overseas?
Yes, there are
Yes.
actually a lot of tours that are here in the United States. There's some that are go through Amish country. That's a really popular one. There's ones with destinations to, because that's another thing. A lot of tours, both domestic and international, have a lot of or can be focused around a quilt show. So like I know there's tours and buses that go down to Houston, down for festival every year. There's a bunch that go to the sister show in Oregon, to QuiltCon, that sort of thing. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of tours that are domestic as well as international. So
And
that's really, oh yeah.
Something to point out on some of those tours too, that are the bus that say they're taking you to sisters or they're taking you to something else. They may not have the time. You're purchasing your classes separately, because generally speaking, they're going to get you from point A to point B, and they're probably going to house you and do some mills.
Correct. Yeah, that's the same with the international tours, like the ones
Right.
that go to the Birmingham Festival of Quilts.
Right.
Like the tours that I was helping with for this year, they're the groups are going to be there for a day and a half. So you get half a day at festival and then a full day at Quilt Festival. But they tell you ahead of time. So that specific tour includes your entrance. So you've got your entrance ticket into the show. But they'll tell you which days and which times you're going to be there. So you can look online and sign up for a class. But that is definitely the class part is on your own.
Rochelle, I'm glad you mentioned that. Excuse me. I wouldn't have thought about that. So knowing the tour, and I'm going to use Paducah, I guess, for an example, because it's on my bucket list.
Right.
If the tour bus in that case, or train, I don't know what happens. If it gets there and they say, okay, you're going to be here from 10 to 3.
Right.
If there was a half day class, then you're saying I can break away from the group.
Yes.
Yes. So generally speaking, you know the date, your bus before they even put out classes for any of these types of things, the bus people put together and say these are the days, and they're organizing it with the people that are putting on the show. And so they'll say, you can take, like Rona said, we're going to be here from the morning from this time to this time, and you could take a half day class. And they do expect, well, they don't expect you to, but they give you that opportunity to do that. Or if you're taking a full day class. So the tours themselves, they, like I said, they're not paying for that part. You're getting that yourself. They don't have a block. Well, my experience has been they don't have a block that says everybody's taking 34 people are taking this. It just doesn't happen. But they might say 34 people are all going to the same museum at the same time.
So
and they give you that.
Yeah, so this is an interesting point, and I know Rona laughs at me anytime I ask these newbie questions, because she does this and she knows this. I know nothing. So if I was saying, hey, I want to go on this quilt tour, and I know Rona's planning one, she puts a fee out there, or whoever's organizing the tour puts a fee.
Right.
Then I, as an individual, need to also, I guess, now think about some extra money to do individual things.
Right. So the tour, when you sign up for the tour, they're going to they should give you a full list of what you're going to be doing and what is covered and what is not. So generally, sometimes your airfare is included, sometimes it's not. But generally speaking, all of your hotels, all of your entrance fees to whatever the organized events are included. Sometimes meals are included. And then, of course, the bus and the guide and all that are included, but they should give you a full list of what is and is not included. So that way, you know, like, okay, meals are not included, or maybe only a few of them are. So I'm going to need to bring a little extra money for the additional meals. Or like in the case of going to the Birmingham Festival, if, okay, I want to sign up for a class, I would highly suggest doing that ahead of time. Because there are some classes that do sell out, of course. But yeah, and generally on tours, even when you go in, like you say, you go to a museum and the guide will walk you, or the tour manager will walk you up to the door, get everybody their entrance, you get in, then you're on your own. And they'll tell you a time, be back in 1 hour, or be back at the bus by 2 p.m. or something like that, to try and keep everybody on schedule. So that's generally how they work.
Rochelle,
And you
you
also want,
mentioned, sorry.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you mentioned the cruises.
Yes.
So when someone signs up for a cruise, is it the same concept? They're paying for the overall cruise, but then individual, if you want to take classes, that's a secondary fee?
So generally on a quilting cruise, on all of them that I have been on, I've done them with different companies, and I'm not going to say the company's names. One of them has 3 different projects that you make. You stay at one machine, and they have 3 different instructors that come through. You stay there, and you're sewing on the days that you're out to sea. Okay. And some of them will have it that the sewing room's open 24 hours a day, so you can sew whenever you want. There's another one that I've gone on that we had 1 project, 1 instructor. We sewed on sea days, and then when it was days that you would go to shore, it was not open for that. And they weren't open in the eat. They would be open like right after dinner until right before shows would start, to encourage you to do the shows. There was another one that was, you brought your own machine, because it was really all hand embroidering. And you could do that whenever and wherever in your room. But something people need to keep in mind when they're looking at what their budget is, and I can't stress this enough, is that you do need to tip your driver, and you do need to tip the person that puts it on. But if they bring someone else onto the bus, that say you're going to be in Birmingham, and they're going to take you to go see, I don't know, there's a big museum that's really well known, and they're going to bring someone else on that is knowledgeable about that, you need to tip that person also. And tip, and that's something that a lot of times when I work with students so much, we would take their tips ahead of time, that was the thing we would keep in the envelopes, and we would give it out for the whole group. But you don't want to be that person on the bus that never tips.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, there are some tours where we've done that tour, or done that too, where we collect if anybody wants to tip, the tour manager would collect the tips, and then we hand it to the driver and stuff, all as one. But also that brings up another good thing about, especially with international tours, is tipping. Because here in America, obviously, we tip a lot, right? In most, especially any kind of restaurant, things like that. And that tipping is not the same in other countries. It's getting very much like the US, in the UK, as far as tipping at restaurants. But like, say, in Iceland, there's no tipping. Right. In Ireland, there was no tipping. And in fact, in some countries, tipping is looked at as an insult to the owner of the restaurant, like they don't pay the people enough.
Right.
So it's whatever tour you go on, definitely check with with your manager or whoever you're registering with for the tour, and they'll let you know, or they should let you know about what, whichever country you're going to, what the tipping suggestions are, and how much.
If your manager if the meal is included in your tour, that's something that they're already taking care of the tipping, so you don't have to do that yourself. Correct. But the person that's your bus driver and the other person, your international person that's in there, they are people that is what they they need that for their salaries because they're spending all this time with you. So, you kind of look at it that way. And people always say, well, how much do I give them? Well, I kind of look at what my number of days that I'm there and, kind of spread it out for that way. But different countries you go to, we'll know what the cost of living is for that. So,
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Rona, what would you say is a typical lead time for someone to start marketing a cruise, people signing up for a cruise? Because I'm one of these people, I have fear of commitment. So I wouldn't want to sign up until like the day before the cruise leaves or the quilt tour leaves. I know you're laughing, Rochelle, but I have a huge fear of commitment. I'm just gonna say, because if I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it. But so and Rona, like I said, this question is directed to you because you do this. I feel like sometimes you start taking restorations like 2 years in advance.
yes.
So, okay, I think 2 years is a little long, but I would say tours tend to start marketing a year to a year and a half in advance, generally about a year. And the reason for that mostly is, well, part of it is because people need to plan that in their calendar. Because I mean, like me specifically, I mean, my calendar is at least 2 years out that I'm planning. And so you're looking at getting the teachers that are coming on and, things like that. They're planning their schedule way out. As far as signing up for a tour, you got to take into consideration, one, how fast is it going to fill up? And two, if it's going international, you need your passport, you need to get your insurance information together, all that sort of thing. So there's lots of stuff to take into consideration, especially with your passport, because passports, depending on how busy things are, I mean, it could be 3 months before you get your passport if you've never had one before,
Right.
things like that. So yeah, there's a reason. I would say at least 6 months, at least, would be a good commitment date.
I mean, I joke about it. I know there's people that will schedule their Disney vacation a year or 2 years in advance, and they make payments on that. Like they'll book it with what is those people called?
Like a travel agent.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Rochelle.
I'm here to get you guys through this.
Yes, and then, I've heard friends say, we booked it, they, pay a whatever down, and then they're paying payments on it, a month. And to me, that sounds like a great way to be able to afford a fabulous vacation. So
You can do
I
that.
get the reason for the long haul, but long.
Right. Well, and you can do that with tours too. Most places so when you register for a tour, and I think is the same with most cruises, there's a specific amount, like $500 down or something like that. And then a lot of them allow you to make payments as well up until the, drop dead date of, which is usually a couple months, like 3 months in advance before the dateline, or it's either 60 or 90 days. And the reason for that is because the people that are organizing the tours, they have to have a confirmation number of people that are going in order to make sure all of the rooms and the tables and all that stuff are reserved and everything's paid off. So you have everything to get there.
We have a question from one of our viewers, one of my friends, Miss Sharon Riles. She says, how do we find these international quilt tours?
So you can actually, well, first of all, stay tuned until the end, because I have an announcement on that front. But also, you can literally do a Google search for quilt tours, and specifically to the country you want to go. Like if you want to go to, say, Germany, quilt tours to Germany. I know the group that I was working with, US Quilt Tours, they would go, they have tours that go to Germany and Iceland for like in the wintertime as well as in the summer, because like Iceland specifically, you have the northern lights and all that stuff, and Germany has those great markets, the Christmas markets. So yeah, definitely, I mean, there's a Google search, but with every other Google search on the planet, be careful. Make sure that you're talking to a reputable tour company, and because good ones will have what am I thinking? Testimonials or whatever on their website. A lot of them are on Yelp. You can find them there. So you just want to make sure that, you know, because these are not cheap. I mean, we're talking a lot of these tours, depending on where you're going, how long you're going to be there, and whether or not airfare is included. Those are kind of the big three that will figure out how much. I've seen tours as little as $2,000 domestic, all the way up to like $7,000 international, depending on, again, where you're going and for how long. So
With that
Yeah.
being said, Rochelle, what's a typical quilt cruise?
So
Price
they'll
point.
cost, so you know, I mean, they're not going to include your airfare generally. Now, if you're going with a travel agent, they can get that for you to go in with it. If you're going out of, say, Galveston, you know, for us, Galveston's a place that people go, and you can do a 7-day cruise that includes your classes for about, and I always stay in an inside room because I like it extremely dark. It doesn't care. I don't care that it's the cheaper part, but it's because I like it dark. But to do that will be about $2,200. And then you'll buy your set sail packets. Some of them will sell you a kit ahead of time. Some of them are included in that. But you can really do, you know, a Caribbean cruise, and even out of Miami, you can get those for around $2,500, including your airfare. Is pretty good to go with that.
And that you said that is typically including the quilt classes, or that's not including?
So it depends on them. Usually you're going to probably add, yeah, that would include it per person. And they're going to, for the quilt classes, if you take someone that's not a quilter, it's usually about $500 or $600 less for them. Because, you know, you're going to have 2 people that are going to be in the room. And typically speaking, when you're booking a cruise, you're going to put down a deposit, and you're probably going to pay 40% up front, and then the other 60% is due in 90 days. And some places will let you make payments on them, some of them don't.
What about Rona tours? Is that kind of the same thing? Like it's a big deposit and then so much later the second half is due?
Usually it's a smaller, most of the deposits I've seen are right around $500 for international tours.
Wow.
And then again, you can make, you know, payments, because that's generally why they do it that way, so people can make payments. And then there's a deadline where the final payment is due, or the balance, I should say, is due, and that's usually about 90 days out from the tour.
Right.
Yeah, and there was something else that I thought of, Rochelle, when you were talking, and the rooms. You mentioned because it's a double room. So that's another thing on tours. When you are looking at registering for a tour, you're going to see the tour price, and then you're going to see a single room edition. And
Right.
so the single room, that means all of the pricing is based on a double room occupancy. So 2 people per room. And if you want a single room by yourself for the whole tour, you can do that, but it's a little bit more expensive because they charge more for single rooms.
Makes sense.
Right. And but if you are traveling by yourself, and I did this for my very first tour that I went to Ireland, the tour groups will generally pair you up with another person that is traveling by themselves. But
Right.
you should be able to get in contact with them before you go on the tour. So,
Oh, Rona muted herself.
sorry, somebody called in on my phone.
Rona went silent.
Yeah, no, my phone all of a sudden started ringing. No, so but yeah, they should get you in touch with the person ahead of time, so you can, you know, talk on the phone, get to know each other. And the lady that ended up rooming with me, we were, oh my gosh, we still talk to each other. We visited. I mean, she flew into Charleston one time, and I went down and met her, and we just had a ball. So yeah, don't be afraid if you don't have somebody to travel with you. Don't be afraid to sign up and get a roommate, because I mean, you could become friends for life. So
That's very true.
Rochelle, you mentioned earlier, you said a non-quilter. So on these tours or cruises,
Right.
like if you and your spouse went to go, but your spouse doesn't
Right.
necessarily care about quilters, that's allowed?
Yes. Or if you have, you know, if you want to take, like, you know, a grandchild, you want to take your grandchild and they're not going to quilt. So yes, it's anyone, they will have a different fee for it, because you're going to pay for the room anyway, but then you're paying another fee that they have included in this, and the quilt cruise. that you're actually quilting. But if you're not going to quilt, they'll take that fee out. And it's
Gotcha.
usually about I think it's about $500.
Rona, there's a question. Why would someone want to consider taking a quilt tour?
Well, I was just gonna follow up as well that for the tours, spouses, I've gotten asked that question too, you know, for non-quilters, like to come along for the tours. So the tours, it's good for spouses too, because you're doing all the touristy stuff, and they don't necessarily have to participate in the quilting things. But we had one person that came with us to Ireland who his wife was the quilter, and so she came with us you know, every day when we were doing all of our stuff. And then he rented a motorcycle. So all day while we were doing our tour stuff, he was riding around Ireland on a motorcycle, and then he would meet up with us for dinner wherever we were going to be.
That's cool.
So as far as why somebody would take a quilt tour, like I said, for me, it was, well, I love to travel, obviously. And my first quilt tour, it was kind of a right place at the right time that I was able to go to Ireland. And I felt good going by myself with a group of quilters, because I knew going in that I already have something in common with all these people, and I get to see Ireland, you know. And ever since then, like I said, when you're on these tours, you spend like anywhere from like 9 to 12 days or 7 to 12 days with these people in a bus, and you're experiencing amazing things, and you're amazing food, beautiful locations, and you're experiencing all these things together with these people. And it's almost like by the end of the tour, you become family, you know. And I know all the tours that I've been able to participate in and go on, I still talk to people from those tours, because everybody, you get really close and just have an amazing time.
And a quilt tour also, the reason you do them is you don't have to take any of your equipment. It's
Correct.
provided for you in that. And it's, you know, it's traveling internationally with a sewing machine. You know, we all know what we put the prices on those machines, and trying to figure out and hope that you have enough room up above there. You know, there's just not, and it's not going to sit underneath. It's not going to lay underneath your seat in front of you. And so a tour provides you with that. You show up with your own suitcase. So that's another reason to do a quilt tour.
Right. And yeah, and everything is done for you. You literally just have to show up and go. Everything is planned for you. Everything is, you just literally show up and everything is done for you. And then, and yeah, anything on a tour, especially going international, I tell people don't ever take your sewing machine international. For one reason is 110 versus 220. You're going to blow up your machine. So
Yeah.
if you're ever in another country on your own and you want to do some sewing, find a quilt shop or something, or somebody you can borrow a machine from. Much better.
Yeah.
So on a
Do the
quilt,
hand. That's when you hand sew.
Yeah, hand
yes,
stitch. Yeah.
hand sew. So in the beginning, Rona, you kind of gave a brief description what a quilt tour is. Go into a little more detail for those of us that don't know. What is some of those little excursion things that would happen that's not like a quilt festival or a quilt show? Like, what potentially would be on the agenda for us to do if we're not in a class and we're not at a quilt show?
So a lot of the times, you're going to have a master quilter with you, or a quilting teacher with you on the tour. And a lot of times they're going to give like little mini workshops. I know there's been some that where the group gets to meet with like the local quilting guilds. That's happened. I get asked a lot about quilt shops.
I was going to say, is there any shop hopping happen?
I'm going to say no. As a general overall, there are exceptions to that, but the reason, and I would say the UK is an exception, because the UK has a lot of their own fabric lines, like Lewis and Irene, shout out, and and then of course like Liberty of London and all that. They've got several coming out, so you can find unique fabrics in the UK, but outside of that, all the quilt shops that you go to, you're going to find the same fabrics that you will here in the States, generally speaking, just more expensive because of, you know, import fees over there. So that's kind of the main reason why we don't go to quilt shops like in Ireland and Iceland. We did our Iceland tour last summer, we did go to a small quilt shop. Iceland doesn't really have, that's another thing. Their quilt shops are not, they're not the same as ours. Like the ones in the UK, the shops, it's mostly fabric. They do some notions and things, but like you're not going to find a lot of quilt patterns and stuff like that, like you would here in the States.
Interesting.
So
Why
it's
is that?
a lot different. You know what? I don't know. I mean, we were talking to Tracy Perks about that, about the patterns and how things are different in the UK. And I really don't know why, because to me, I mean, maybe because it's a smaller country and it's not as like they don't have as many designers as we do.
And
So
for those of you that don't know, when she just name dropped Tracy Perks, that is Tracy Perks with Rope and Anchor Company. She is a pattern designer out of the UK.
Well,
Sorry,
she's
Rona.
been on our Quilt Babble, so I just assume that people watch us every month, and so they would know.
Well, I figured they watched your video when you two were melting down on her little sew boat.
Yeah.
And like in Africa, you're not going to find a quilt shop. You're going to go to the tailor shop. And that's where you're going to be buying yardage. And lots of times they're not cutting anything off of a bolt. It's coming in 3 meters and it's already wrapped together and you kind of pick out what you want. That's with those wax, the wax cloth and things like that. They're already cut in 3 meters for you. So a lot of the China, you know, in China, I never found a quilt shop, but I could find where they would make bedding and then they would have it already cut into 3 meters pieces for you.
Yeah. And then of course, in what you could find more of in like say Iceland and even in Scotland was of course the wool and some amazing wool fabrics that and yarn especially. Yeah.
Definitely.
And the tartans, you can't forget the tartans.
That's right.
So if let's say I have found a quilter company that I feel like they're legit, they're not a scam. I've verified this, like Rona said, with reviews or word of mouth, maybe from another quilty friend. And I'm going to bite the bullet and I'm going to sign up for this quilt tour. And let's pretend I have the money. What is some other things that I need to now start considering? You mentioned money, you mentioned if it's international passports, those type of things. We talked about if there was a time frame that I could be on my own, I could potentially take a class if we were at a quilt show or something like that. But outside of those things, what else do I need to start thinking about? You mentioned the electrical aspect, and my mom's been to Italy a million times, and I've heard about the whole, I don't remember any of it, but the packing aspect is these things.
So, I'll talk. Yeah. So packing, I'll talk about real quick about, well, I don't know about quick, but, so the first thing is electricity is one of the biggest ones. And I have this, little square, which, is, for right now, it's here in the US. So it's got that kind of double, where's my camera? The double, you know, our 110 volts. But what's cool about this is this comes out. And then I can put a different one in for the different country, whatever country I'm in. So you have one, the standard 220 volt for the UK. There's a different one for Ireland. And then there's one for Iceland. Or no, Iceland, I think uses the UK one. I can't remember. Anyway, but there's like 4 or 5 of them and you can get these on Amazon. It's just an international charger thing. So, that is, like I said, this is a lifesaver. They're not expensive. You can get them at Best Buy, Amazon, Walmart, I think may have them. And then packing. So the biggest thing about packing is when I took my first tour to Ireland, I was assuming that I was going to bring back all kinds of amazing things that, you know, I was going to purchase and all that. So I bought the biggest suitcase that I could possibly find that would fit on a plane. Don't do that. Don't ever do that, because you on a tour, like on a cruise, it's fine. You go and you're staying in your room and that's it for the duration. But on a tour, you're not going to stay at the same hotel the same time. You're going to go from hotel to hotel to hotel. And guess who's got to take their bags up and down to and from your room. So I always recommend either a medium size or even one of the small roll-on ones that you can take on board with you, or in the cabin, in the main cabin with you. And no, I don't have one with me. So a way to get around baggage fees too with that is, so I roll all of my clothes, no matter if Rochelle is having just a terrible time with
Because my phone is telling me that I only have 2% power.
Oh,
So I'm
that's
looking
not
to
good.
see. Now I'm good again. I'm good again.
Okay, okay.
I'm
So anyway, so if you're going, it doesn't matter if I'm going for 7 days or 14 days on a tour. I take 1 week's worth of clothes and so you can mix and match, and then I roll everything up because that you can fit more in. That's how they used to do it. The sailors used to do it with their big bags. And then also I take laundry. So like Tide, there's a bunch of them. They are laundry strips. It's not soap. It is soap, but it's condensed soap in these little strips. So they take up no space in your suitcase, and you can wash out your underclothes or whatever in the sink in your hotel room and hang them up to dry. I've done it, I don't know how many times. And then also I have this kind of cloth duffel bag that I roll up and stick inside that suitcase. So then if I overbuy, which I have been known to do from time to time, then I can just put all that stuff and my little shoulder bag inside that duffel, and I've still only got 2 carry-ons. So I don't have to check anything.
And the other thing to keep in mind that if you bring it, you sling it. And that's what you need to think about. So getting your bags, we always did this with students, and we would say, pack what you think you need, put it in your suitcase, and now drag that around your neighborhood. And people would laugh about this, and we'd say, because that's what's going to happen to you in Europe. And a lot of times there's not going to be an elevator. You don't put the elevators aren't used for luggage. They're used for people. So when you get on an elevator, you are taking your luggage up the stairs and you are moving things around. So if you have, I can have 70 pounds in my bags. And if I take 70 pounds in a bag, I have to take that everywhere I go. So less is definitely best. Like Rona's saying, washing out in the sinks. In Europe, they have wires go across the showers, and they all are aware of washing things and hanging them out. So that's the best way to do it. Things that you know are going to dry quickly.
Look at me the whole time. I'm like, and all I can think about is, I know, all I can think about is Steve. As you guys know, he's always the man behind the curtain. He is not a traveler, well, for different reasons, but I just feel like I can hear Steve going, just stay home.
Just stay home. Just
stay home.
Actually, if you think about it, you really wear about the same 3 things in the whole week when you're home. So why not just take those 3 things, and then, if you're sitting on a bus and you're not real sweaty, honestly, you guys, your pants and stuff like this, you can wear pants a couple of days without washing them out.
Mm-hmm. Just don't turn your underwear inside out. That's just wrong. I've heard people
that's just wrong on every level.
Y'all are making me have flashbacks to people that talk about being in prison with not clean undergarments. I'm just saying. Okay, so here is a question. What are this is probably directed at Rona, since you are the traveling quilter and you hear from a lot of people. What are some of the most common questions or concerns from people that you hear interested in joining a quilt tour? Like, what's their woes before they finally go, I'm gonna do it?
What I think really pretty much what the things we've already covered mostly. Like the biggest questions I get are reputable. I've actually had some people email me saying, hey, I'm interested in this tour from this company, but I'm not really sure, because it's a lot of money and that sort of thing. So making sure it's with a reputable company. And then that's really kind of the biggest as far as whether or not to say yes. Physical. Okay. So sorry, I just saw the question about different physical abilities. If there are people that are most tours, the people that organize tours, they will have accommodations for people with physical disabilities. But that being said, most of the tours, you're going to do a lot of walking, no matter what. So just keep that in mind before somebody likes, that would be a concern before saying yes or no. Because because your group, the tour it's go, go, go. I mean, you're going to go to like 3 or 4 different places in one day, plus your meals, plus the hotels and all that.
I have seen a disclaimer on, even if it's something that, you know, it's a 2-hour tour somewhere. I'm not talking quilting, but just in general. I have seen where there's disclaimers that will say, you know, physical capability needs to be a minimum of, you know, type thing. So I have seen that. Back to the question about concerns that people might have that are interested. And once again, you're talking to someone that's never been out of the country. Does the question come up? Is this a safe place for Americans to go? Like,
so I can
honestly word it, but you know what I'm asking.
So I can honestly say I've never received that question as far as safety is concerned. But
I would be
also,
asking that because I'm a hillbilly. I don't know better.
No, it's a legitimate concern, especially with things going on in the world today. It's crazy out there, right?
You laugh, Rochelle. I was raised between 2 mountains.
She was.
Let me tell you, to go out of the mountains to what I would consider big city, Rona would consider a wet spot in the road that actually had a red light. To me, that's a big city. So for someone that, you know what I'm saying, lived a very sheltered life. The first time Mom told me she was going to Italy, I was in meltdown mode, like absolutely meltdown mode. So it's a legit question, Rona, not to you because you travel and you go to the Isle of Rona by yourself. I mean, come on.
Well, I said, it's a legitimate question. But that's part of the job, or part of the reason to go with the group is because security and numbers in the places that they're going to take you, those places know you're coming. So there's levels of security kind of built into the tours.
So that's something that potentially would be on the website when you're reading about tours. Like, I'm sure that's got to be a frequent asked question answer, you know, of yes, this is a safe area. And
well, the U.S. government also lists the areas that are safe for you to go to and what things you should be looking out for if there's a problem. You know, like in 2020, when I went to Antarctica, the only thing that they told us that we should look out for when we got to Buenos Aires was pickpocketers. They didn't list in there that you're going to get stranded and stay there because you have COVID came in, because that wasn't something that we had. But they will list what diseases that could possibly be there, what immunizations you might need, and what level of security you should plan to have there. And that's updated daily.
That's awesome. Earlier you guys mentioned, or Rona did, about international difference, like in regards to tipping in America is normal, but maybe in other areas not so normal, or even a negative. The question is how on these quilt tours that are international, and I know we're talking a lot of international, we should talk some local domestic stuff too, but the question is, how is the language barrier handled, or cultural differences on these quilt tours?
Well, the cultural differences, my biggest thing would say, keep an open mind, because if you're going international, you're not in the United States. So there's a lot of things that are different. But just keep an open mind where that's concerned. But the language barriers, your guide, if you're going to a non-English speaking nation, like when we went to Iceland last summer, our guide Dorothea was amazing. She was also our interpreter. So anytime we would go to a place where the owners or the operators there only spoke Icelandic, then she would be the one talking to them instead of me. And that sort of thing. So there should never be an issue with a language barrier. Your manager should always be able to speak the local language, or whoever the guide is that they hire will be interpreter.
And the technology on our phones now, you can ask a question and put it out there for that. So that's not an issue. Probably the biggest cultural difference for people, I'm going to say it for you, my hillbilly friend in between the 2 mountains there. You're not going to get ranch dressing when you're in Europe. And I mean, and if that's something that you have to have, take it with you because you are not going to get it. Food is going to be different than what it is that we eat here.
You're so funny, Rochelle, bringing this up because this is the number one reason why I probably would not go because I do eat like a 2-year-old. Pizza, chicken nuggets, whatever.
Yeah, not gonna happen.
I like to starve to death in New Orleans. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, there you go.
It was horrible. It was horrible. Now I was there for.
There's
You
lots
laugh,
of
Rona.
great food there.
Listen, you ladies laugh. I was there for work. It was a real estate conference. And okay, first of all, I live at the time, a very sedentary, that's not how you pronounce it, but you know what I'm talking about. Like I'm in front of the computer a lot because I'm managing the agents. And at the time, I had already came out of the hospital working for nurses and I didn't have SewEndipitous at the time. So I was in front of the computer doing a lot of computer work. So here I get to New Orleans and of course you want to walk, you want to look, you want to see. Let me tell you, a girl was huffing the first night or two. But then, as the days progressed, it was fabulous to walk X amount of blocks, whatever, to see what you see. But this is no lie. From the time I got off the plane until I got back in Charlotte, due to the walking and not eating almost the entire time, I lost like 15 pounds in 7 days.
Well, see, maybe if you did the international, you would do that same thing. So maybe that's what you ought to say. Hey,
I would need an IV if I went international. Are you kidding?
Hey, I was very excited to find out because I'm one of those people that I like mayonnaise with French fries, and people look at me like I have two heads, and that is like one of the most common things in the UK. I was very excited to see that.
Yeah.
You definitely have to have an open mind with food. That is for sure.
You do.
Yeah.
As long as I got some bread, I can survive. I can do bread.
They would have bread.
They have some amazing bread. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. But that is a good point, Rochelle, really thinking about those things that you feel like you cannot live without. Is it something you're going to be able to obtain over there?
And there are things I always suggest, this is the thing that everybody teases me about this because, I love my sweets, but I don't mind buying sweets in a foreign country. I don't care. But I always take those things that are my favorite things to have. So when I'm on the plane or if you're on the bus or, movement is a definite issue for me. I mean, I'm always sick. So, I'm living off of Dramamine. So I'm making sure I have a big water bottle that I can fill with it because my mouth's always dry. Having mints. And having mints so the person sitting next to you, you can offer them one. Because if someone on a tour offers you a mint, they're not being nice. Your breath is bad. Take the mint.
As her phone crashes out. Now, I had to laugh because I was waiting on this to happen. At the beginning, when I introduced our special guest tonight, when I said her name, I said inappropriate quilter. So I was waiting on the pizzazz to pop out. And there you go. Look at your glasses. The pizzazz. But Rochelle, you brought up one of my questions that I was coming to. And just so you guys know, we have like 12 minutes left. Babble runs so fast. Medicine. Quilters, we're not usually 20 for the most part. And people that can go on some of the tours like Rona is usually talking about because they are very expensive and long. 20-year-olds can't necessarily, always afford those. So let's talk medicines, like traveling international with our pocket full of pills. What's happening?
So you want to make sure that you have everything in their original bottles with the prescription number on it. Because coming through customs, that can be an issue. And don't throw in, say, a laxative in with your high blood pressure medication, because if they pull you aside, they're thinking you're smuggling something else that needs to be what it is. Keep your laxatives in their own thing. And serious people, take laxatives with you when you go on an international trip. You're on those planes, you're not eating the same things. You don't want it to be something that's going to give you a major colon blow, but you want something that's going to help you move some stuff through because you don't know what your bathrooms are going to be. You want to take Tums. You are going to be eating different foods. You want to take medications for motion. Even if you don't ever get sick, in some of these countries, the roads are really windy and they go fast, and you're in a bus that's different movement. Motion can be a huge deal for you. Taking aspirins with you, so taking some cortisone cream, so because you're going to be bit by bugs you never knew existed. And that's just the nature. That's just the nature of being. They're like, ooh, this is new blood. Let's take this on. So
Just say,
Band-Aids.
your all sales pitch for a quilt tour sucks.
No, these are the things that you wouldn't want to get there without. It's not. There's nothing wrong with these. In the U.S., you can go find yourself Tums, but in a foreign country, you may not be able to find Tums. You may not be able to find a Band-Aid. You may not be able to find these things. If you're someone that's using poise panties, take enough panties for you, because you may not end up finding them there, and they're going to be cheaper if you take them.
But also when you're on the tour, if there's something like, if you need ibuprofen or if you need something like that, that's a basic first aid thing, just tell your tour manager, and they'll be able to stop for you. And they'll know like where the local pharmacy or something is that they can pick those things up. Because we've had to do that before. We've had to get an antihistamine because we had an allergic reaction. And we've had to stop for toothbrush and toothpaste because somebody left their overnight bag. So, yes, travel constipation is a real issue. That is true. And the other and blowouts. I'm having Osage Hills flashbacks, Rochelle, to your stories.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Oh my God.
I knew you would be.
And we don't need to cover those, though. We don't need to cover them.
We'll tell Lisa those when we're not on here, but that's absolutely true.
Yes.
The other thing is, if you are a person that you have a marijuana card in the United States and you want to take your gummies with you, do not take them, because they are not the same way here. And we cannot stress that enough. That is just, that's the absolute. If you are a smoker, take your own smokes with you, because they are terribly expensive in Europe. Terribly expensive.
All the vices.
Yeah. Right.
So Rona, we have 8 minutes left, and I just want you to know that I had a couple of different people tell me that they get your newsletter, they read your newsletter, and they were, they either see me in person or they emailed me, they text me, and they're like, hey, what's the inside to Rona's email? And I'm like, I have no clue what you're talking about. I'm in the middle of trying to get ready I've been to Utah. I'm trying to get ready for a Handy Quilter grand opening at SewEndipitous in Rock Hill, guys. Anyway, so Rona said in her newsletter, she had a big announcement, and they wanted me to spill the beans in advance because the announcement was supposed to be done on July Quilt Babble. And I was like, listen, at this point, I don't even know my name, let alone Rona's name. So Rona, we've got 7 minutes left.
Okay.
Me and the rest of your newsletter readers.
Yes.
So, okay. So the big announcement, so I have to kind of preface it with, things did not go exactly as planned today or for this big announcement, because I was hoping to have everything on the website ready for you guys to just sign up and so for 2025, all the way up until today, I have been doing tours and organizing tours with other companies. And so for 2025, I am organizing and I am putting together my own tour to Scotland. But this is not like any other tour. So this tour is, like I said at the beginning, most quilt tours are about 80% or so touring, and then about 15 to 20% of quilting. There's usually, depending on, where and when you're going. But the biggest question I would get, like posting online, especially our Iceland quilt tour last summer, was, where's the quilting? You're seeing really cool things, but where's the quilting? Right. So this tour to Scotland, it's about 50-50, 50% touring. So you're still going to get to see Edinburgh Castle and the Battle of Culloden and all those fun things, but you're also going to get 50% of quilting and crafting. So we're going to go to Dovecot Studios in Edinburgh, and you're going to get to see how tapestries are made. We're going to go to a sheep farm with the Angora goats. And then so you get to see how the sheep are taken care of and how the wool is processed. We're going to another sheep farm in the northern part, which is the sheep for the Scottish wool and the Highland coos, because everybody loves the Highland coos. So you got lots of wool
Sure.
and yarn. We're going to do a night with Lizzie McDougall. So Lizzie McDougall I met by accident, which was, I think, divine intervention. She is the keeper of the Highland stories, and she is also an artist. And she has made a few quilts, and these quilts are all hand done applique and some piecing, that each one tells several stories from Highland history. So we're going to have an evening with Miss Lizzie McDougall. You're going to get to see the Great Tapestry of Scotland, and another one that is brand new for next year that's not even open yet, but I heard about it, so that's going in there as well. So like I said, it's 50% quilting, crafting, and 50% touring. So you're going to get, I have on the website, the dates are September 3rd through September 14th. And like I said, there was a little snag in
Of what
the back
year?
end. 2025. Yes, 2025. So there was a snag on the back end, so I can't have you guys actually register yet. However, there is a sign up, so you can shoot me an email and say, I want to be on the list. So the moment that registration is open, you guys will be the first ones to know. So if you go to my website, ronatheribiter.com/travel with Rona, all one word, travel with Rona. The little thing there is on there to register. Like I said, just shoot me a message and say, add me to the list. I want in.
I don't
I
have to
love it.
send the message because we already know that this is
Right.
Rice and Rona are going to be together for this. So
Yes. Yeah. And that is true that Rice and Rona will be together for this tour,
Yes.
and you are not going to want to miss that.
You are not going to want to miss that at all.
So for those that
Wow.
don't know who Rice Arona or what Rice Arona is, Rochelle, tell these fine people what Rice and Rona is.
So I signed up to take Rona's retreat. I kind of signed up before it was out there, like what this starts coming in, and I was bugging her, and we were at Osage Hills Retreat Center, and we hit it off really well. And we do a Wednesday morning live at 8 a.m. Central, and Rice or Rona catch up with each other of the things, because my last name's Rice, she's Rona, and it's Rice or Rona, and we are quite entertaining.
Where
And
can
we
people
are-
catch this?
We are a
We-
hashtag.
Oh yeah, well, we are a hashtag. So you can catch us on Instagram, and we do it 8 a.m. Central on Instagram, and it comes up on my Donut Warrior, which I then share with Rona. So does it come at the same time with your Rona, or is it after the fact that it comes
No,
into
it doesn't. It doesn't post to my page until it's ended and we do the collaboration and all that. So
Okay.
then it posts to my page. But yeah, so follow me, follow Rochelle, like she said,
Yes.
Donut Warrior on Instagram, and and you'll see them. And it's we hit it off instantly. And then Melissa, who owns Osage Hill, she's been a guest of ours as well. She
Yes.
suggested you guys should do a live together on Instagram. So we did. And then we did it again the next day and the next day. And then we went I think we went live 3 times one day. And then people were all just like cracking up. And so we asked, would you like us to continue? And it was like overwhelmingly, yes.
Yes.
So, yeah. So
And
now
we're
you're stuck with
unscripted.
it.
We kind of hit with what we do. Rona, do you have an idea what the price is that you can tell people, or is that one of the things that's not finalized yet? Or can you
That's
give a
one of the
ballpark
things
figure?
that's one of the things that's not finalized yet, as we're having to move some things around. So as far as like dates or not dates, but locations for a few things.
Right.
So yeah.
So you can't even give a ballpark figure. It's gonna be under $90 million. We know that.
It's definitely going to be, I can say it's going to be well under 10,000. We'll put that.
Okay.
It's definitely going to be well under 10,000.
So like a mid-range 10,000. It could be anywhere from $0 to $6,834.
Nothing like putting you on the spot, Rona. I'm going to save you. Guys, if you listen, when Rona is saying go to the URL that she had mentioned, and I'm sure she'll throw that into social media, and Steve will also probably throw that into social media. By signing up on that, that is not saying, yes, I'm going. That is telling Rona, hey, I want to be in the know. I want to be the first to know as soon as these logistics are worked out. And of course, the price that Rochelle's really pushing for. So don't feel obligated like, oh, I can't go on and, throw my name in the hat because I'm committing to something. Once again, commitment phobia here.
Okay.
You're just saying, hey, Rona, this sounds really interesting. I want to know more. That is what
Right.
up is for.
Right. And when the registration opens, I'll have everything, all the details
Right.
for pricing, what's included, what's not, all of that will be included in the once registration is open. And of course, you'll
Perfect.
already, be able to, if you had any questions after that, just let me know.
Absolutely.
Right.
So we are at 8 o'clock on the nose, but we do have one more
Perfect.
question that we're going to ask. But just as a reminder for those that are watching, just remember I am Lisa Baker with SewEndipitous. It is a quilt shop here in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and all things fabulous. Of course, you guys know Rona. She is the traveling quilter. You can find her on RonaTheRibbiter.com. Mine is SewEndipitous.com. Miss Rochelle, one of the members of Inappropriate Quilters, Donut Warrior, is that correct?
Yep.
On
That is correct.
Instagram. So
Right.
with that being said, the final question, Rona or Rochelle can chime in and answer. By the way, Melissa is watching.
Of course she is. Hi, Brad.
So the question for whichever one of you want to answer and close us out tonight is, can you share a memorable experience or story from one of your quilt tours that you've either been on or, in Rona's case, maybe led?
I don't think I can tell my stories on here because these people don't know me, because Rona's shaking her head. No, my memorable ones are not stories. Remember some of the things I said to take. So I'm going to let Rona tell a memorable one on hers. And if you when you tour with me, I will tell you these other stories, but not here.
It's a family show. I think one of the things that stands out for me is that tour, the first tour that I did to Ireland. I mean, we've had so many amazing things, but this one was, we had just gotten, so when we flew into Dublin, we drove out to Galway to our first hotel, and we had about 2 hours before dinner. And of course, the smart people took a nap. But me, I'm like on my GPS going, oh my gosh, there's a lake nearby. Let's go find it. So my roommate, Jeannie, God bless her. I think she was either in her late 60s or close to 70 at the time. She went with me. I just dragged her everywhere. But we went to this park trying to find this lake, and there's all these little pathways and we couldn't find it. So we flagged down this jogger and asked him for directions. And he was from Northern Ireland and had a really thick accent. I know he was speaking English, but I'm just not quite sure. We couldn't understand him. And we kind of got a pointing that direction. And then he asked us, you're Americans? And we're like, yeah. And then he's, where? And so I told him, because I was from North Carolina, and they said on the East Coast. And then Jeannie, she was from Arizona. And he just starts rattling off this whole long thing. And the only thing I got out of him was John Wayne. And we're like, yes, that's it. That's exactly right. So, you can get through the language barrier.
Exactly. Ladies, it has been so fun. Rochelle, thank you for hanging out with me and Rona tonight. It has been such a pleasure. We'll definitely have to have you back. And
you and Leslie, we got to get Leslie on here too.
Absolutely, we'll get it that way. You guys, thanks for inviting me, because you never know what you're going to get when you put me on a show. And I'm not used to having the live thing, so the stuff dropping, I'm not even thinking of that. That happens on ours all the time. You never see it. So this is the kind of stuff you get with me. I tried to stay in my seat, but I think I was still doing the move a lot. But, sorry.
That's all right.
It's all good. It's all good. Guys, thank you tonight for tuning in for the July 2024 edition of Quilt Babble Live with Lisa and Rona. As you know, we don't know what August is going to be, but it's going to be fabulous. Right, Rona?
Of course, it always is.
Guys, have a good night and we will see you next time.
Bye.
And I got to figure out how to get you all out of here. So hang tight. I'm looking.